Some of the highlights for this template include unlimited number of orders for each order type. Multiple order sets can be available for each diagnosis group. You can order the entire order set at one time. You can select order details before placing the order. We have a new option called Bypass Order Module Processing. And you can manage orders directly from the same template. So let's take a look at the workflow. Here you can see that I've accessed the EHR application and I've opened up a patient's chart. From today's encounter, I'm going to go ahead and access the SOAP template. My Custom Plan can be accessed anywhere that the existing My Plan template has been linked. So for example, I can click on My Plan from the sub-navigation list, or I can scroll down to the Assessment and Plan section and I can choose My Plan from the list here. To start the order process, it's necessary to first select an assessment. So you'll notice here in the Order Options section that there's no orders available, and you see an alert that indicates that you have to select an assessment before the orders can begin. You'll also notice a series of indicators at the top of the assessment section. You have an ordering assessment indicator, diagnosis group, and order set. At this point, these indicators are in a stop position, which indicates that we cannot move forward. Once you select the assessment from the grid, the indicators will turn green, which indicates we can now move on with the rest of our order. Before we actually choose the order options, it's also important to keep in mind that there may be multiple diagnosis groups or order sets available for this particular assessment. And in this example, the order set does have multiple options. The user can actually choose the blue active text link that displays with the order set, and then they'll be prompted with a list of all available order sets. Every single order set will have a default option, so the user can always go with the default, but they can also choose from the available list here, and this is based on the configuration options. Once the user has determined that they have the order set that they would like to use, they can move on to the Order Options section. So here you'll notice the plan type list, and these are going to represent all the different types of orders that can be created. So here you'll notice things like lab orders, and this will give us the list of available lab orders first from the order set, and it gives me order details like the time frame. If the user wants to place an order directly from this order set, they can simply select the item from the grid, and then they can choose the necessary time frame if they'd like to have that included with the order. It's important to keep in mind that the time frame is not a required selection, so they could just skip this and move on with ordering their test. So once I'm ready to order that item, I can simply click the Add button at the bottom of the section. If I don't see the test that I'd like to order in this order set, I can also choose the Show All option at the top of the list, and I'm then presented with the entire NextGen compendium for lab orders. Now, because this is a longer list, it's also possible to use the search functionality at the top of the grid. So here I could go ahead and type in the word lipid and click the search button, and I'll get any available tests that contain the word lipid. So at this point I'll scroll through and I'll find exactly which test I would like to order. And again, I could choose time frame, and then I'll click the Add button. Now you also have some available comments that could be included before you add it to the pending orders, and these comments also use my phrases if necessary. Once we're done with the lab orders, we can move on to different plan types. You'll notice we do have diagnostics, which also includes order set functionality, and a Show All from the entire NextGen compendium. Here you can also choose side and site, orientation, position, and time frame. And once again, these order details are not required, but they can be selected as needed for any selected order. You'll also notice the search option can be used here because, again, we're searching through the entire NextGen compendium. The next one is office medications. This is where you can go to order injectable items or other medications that are administered here in the office. We also have office procedures, any items that are done here in office, office supplies, and then office labs. And again, you're noticing as you select that plan type, the order set is automatically loaded. So anytime you want to find additional options, you have to click that Show All feature. And then once again, if you have Show All activated, then that's where you get the search capability. You might also be noticing that as we go through, the different order details are changing with the plan types. This particular set of order details is also configurable. From there, you're going to notice some new options like instructions. Now, we previously had options for instructions, but now you can create a preloaded set of instructions with an unlimited number available. So here in our order set, you can see options like follow a low sodium diet or increase activity and stop smoking. So those can certainly be added. We can go ahead and choose increase activity and click the add option. I can also choose show all, and I can get a longer list of available instructions. These at this point will not necessarily have anything to do with the selected assessment, but they are included in the configuration database. Of course, if I do choose to add additional instructions, you'll also want to take note of the fact that patient education information will be listed, as well as instruction comments. And these instruction comments can also work with my phrases. Next, you'll notice a referrals plan type, and this one has options for specialty, provider, reason for referral, and time frame. So I can go ahead and choose my specialty, then I can choose my provider, and I can choose the reason for the referral and the time frame. From there, of course, I can click the add button and it'll queue that up as a pending order. It's important to keep in mind with referrals that this is not currently functioning specifically with NextGen Share functionality, but it will carry over to our new referral management template, which will allow you to create a NextGen Share referral based on this order itself. You can also access this order from the standalone referrals tab and send it out through NextGen Share that way. Another item in the list is for follow-up, so you can indicate follow-up information, and of course in this case we're choosing provider, reason for follow-up, and time frame. You also have options for disposition now, so if necessary you can indicate their disposition like discharged home, and then the reason as well as the time frame. And then the last one is for guidelines, and what this gives us is a grid of all of the guidelines that are associated to this individual patient. You'll start by noticing all items that are due at the top of the list, and then everything else that's already been associated, you can scroll through the list here. Now, if I want to create any orders directly from this, it is going to be based on the configuration that's been previously done for the care guidelines as far as which particular test you're actually ordering. So if I went ahead and did this urinalysis here, it's already pre-configured to determine which exact test code it's going to be. So keep that in mind. So those are all of my different plan types, and of course the user can go through each one individually to make up their entire order. But there's one new feature that's part of My Custom Plan that's brand new to the order process, where you can just go directly to the order set plan type. So in this case, I see every single item that's already included in the hypertension order set. So if necessary, I could simply select one at a time from this list, or I can choose the Add All button at the bottom of the section, and I can order every single item within the order set. So it truly does give you a quick way to order anything that's necessary for this particular assessment. You'll also notice an option at the top of the grid that is a checkbox that says on row select add to pending orders. This is useful if the user doesn't want to add any additional order details and they just simply want to select the test or the item from the initial grid. That would make things a little bit quicker and they don't have to click the add button. This particular checkbox can also be defaulted through the configuration options. So once we've chosen every single item that we would like to have in our order, you'll notice the pending orders grid below. So everything in pending orders is still not necessarily, so these items in the pending orders have not yet been created yet, but I still have them in here so that I know exactly what I intend to order. What's nice about this is I also have an opportunity to make changes before I place my order. The first thing you'll notice is a filter option. So at the top of the grid, I can click View, and I can filter by specific plan types. So let's look at lab orders. From there, I'll notice a couple of lab orders that have been chosen for today. I can also move on and maybe look at something like referrals. So this is a nice, easy way to narrow down the list in case there are many different items. I can also go on to this checkbox here that says AOE. And one of the new features for My Custom Plan is the ability to document AOE questions directly from the template. So what this checkbox does for me is that it filters out any items that have pending Ask It Order entry questions. So first of all, you'll notice that my 2 labs do display, and then I can go to the bottom of the grid and click the AOE button. Now before I click that button, you'll also notice a yellow indicator that tells me also that I have at least one test that's requiring some Ask It Order entry questions. So if I didn't use that filter, I would still want to look for that indicator there so that I don't miss my questions. So here I can go ahead and select the test and then choose the AOE button, and it's going to launch the Ask It Order entry questions that we have for these lab tests. So first of all, for the BMP test, it is asking if the patient is fasting. You'll notice that the AOE entry options display on the right, so we have a yes or a no. And I can choose my answer and click the add button. From there, it will save my answer information and I can move on to the next question. Now in this case, it happens to be the same one, so I can go ahead and either answer it again or I could just skip this question. Now, every individual question is going to be based on the file maintenance setup. So depending on whether you've chosen things like ask question once or answer is required or things like that, that's going to depend on what happens here. So in this case, I might have to answer both of them, but that is also something I can change through file maintenance. Once I've finished answering my questions, I can go ahead and save and close. And all of that AOE information will pass through to the orders module if that's where this particular order needs to end up. Now you're also going to notice a couple other options like the auto tasking on checkbox, so I can prompt the user to automatically task another user just by placing the order. There's also an on row select remove from pending orders, so you can easily remove any of the items that have been previously selected. You'll also see an option to create order set, and this is something that's enabled at the practice level through configuration. And if you want the provider to be able to create their own individual order sets, then they can simply free text a name for the order set, and then they can determine if it's going to be a new order set or if they're updating an existing one with the same name. They can also set this as the default for the diagnosis group, which would be just their default since it is provider specific, and then they can save that order set. When they do that, you'll notice a confirmation that they're going to add an order set with everything that's listed in the pending orders cart. So we'll say yes, and the order set was successfully added. From there, once we're ready to completely place our order, we can click the place order button at the bottom of the list, and everything that was in pending orders is now blank. So all of that information has now been officially created as an order. Now it's also possible that some of those orders have processed to the order module. Another new feature that goes with My Custom Plan is the bypass order module processing. And you'll notice that at the top of the template, we have the insurance listed and the policy number, and then you'll see the lab vendor, billing type, and priority, and the same information for the radiology vendor. And you also have access to the Quest and LabCorp PSC hold option. So all of these are the common items that you would typically see through our order module processing template. So what we've done is we have allowed the user to be able to choose the actual information rather than going to a separate template. So because I have this enabled through my practice template configuration, it defaulted specific information. Now, if the user did not want to use what's defaulted here, they would have to make sure that they selected the appropriate vendor, billing type, and priority before they click the place order button. So at this point, I've completed all of my orders. They're in the orders module, and I could move on to the orders module to make any other changes. Before we take a look at the orders in the module, I first want to go down to the second panel within this template, which is called Manage Orders. In the Manage Orders section here, I can use this section to see all of the orders that have been created, and I can select one individually, like this referral order here, and I can manage different options. So you'll notice things like side and site and modifier and position, but I can also choose schedule date and time frame. So if this is the type of order that somebody has to update throughout the encounter, this can be done directly from the My Custom Plan. It's not necessary to go directly to the order management template, for example. So I can put in a scheduled date, we'll say it's December 20th, and the time frame or the appointment time that we have was 3:15 p.m. And you can note the location and phone number and if an authorization is required. And you also have access to this action and comments section where you can free text information. So if I have made changes to the order, I can click the update button and save all of that back to the original grid. I can also quick task directly from here, and I can access procedure and test instructions. So this panel is just a way to get to the typical manage options for any individual order. Once we've completed all the necessary information on My Custom Plan, you can click Save and Close. Now, of course, all the order information will update in our assessment grid just like it normally would. So we had some lab tests, some instructions. We also had a referral order. So let's navigate back up to the top of the SOAP template and jump over to the Checkout tab. As you know, with Checkout, this template typically shows you all of the orders that have been created throughout the encounter. So the biggest change here that I want you to notice as a result of My Custom Plan is that we have a new filter for your labs and diagnostic tests that say processed and unprocessed. The purpose of this is because we have that bypass order module processing. So in this case, it is defaulted to be processed, and I can see that my 2 labs that I've created have already been processed to the orders module. So that means I do not need to go to the order module processing template from here. If I change the radio button to unprocessed, I can see if I have any others that are pending that maybe just were not able to be processed at that time. So of course everything has been processed, and I can move on to my order module. So we'll access that from the history toolbar. And here you'll notice my order has automatically been sent to the order module. It was just those 2 lab tests, a lipid panel and a BMP. And if we look at the order details, I just want to show you that all of this information did carry over. So specifically, if we go to the Test Details tab, you'll notice each of my individual tests at the top, and at the bottom you can notice the Ask It Order Entry questions have already been populated. So everything that we just created from the My Custom Plan template pushed over into the orders module. So it might be possible that the end user does not have to go into the orders module to actually update any other information. But if so, remember that you do still have the option to send the order to the module without sending it across the interface. That's based on configuration in the ngkbm config template. So My Custom Plan basically just allows you to save a step and not necessarily input everything from the orders module. So now let's take a look at some of the differences between My Plan and My Custom Plan. So first of all, there are some similarities that you've probably noticed. Both templates utilize diagnosis-based order sets. Both of those work with meaningful use clinical decision-making support. And both of them will update the care guidelines, and they can be sent to the orders module. So from a basic functionality perspective, both templates are going to serve the same purpose. But there are some differences between the template as well. First of all, you might have noticed that My Plan works with medical necessity functionality, but My Custom Plan does not currently have this option. So there was an alert at the top of the My Custom Plan template that indicates it's not working with medical necessity at this point in time. You can still use medical necessity on the orders module or places like the lab master or the diagnostics templates. And then My Custom Plan is the only one that has the bypass order module processing feature. This feature is not going to be added to the original My Plan template. So now it's important to keep in mind that there are some reasons that you might want to consider switching. You definitely have to choose between the original My Plan or the My Custom Plan. It's not possible to keep both of them in the workflow. So again, My Custom Plan was designed to be easier to use. There's fewer steps to create that order, especially when you use the order set plan type, where you can create the entire order at one time. All the details can be completed directly from the template, like the order details of time frame and site and site. Plus you have AOE questions, and you can manage the order options for things like referral information. And going forward, this is the template that will be upgraded in future versions. There's no new functionality planned for the original My Plan template. So it is something to consider whether you want to switch to this new template or not. Both templates will remain in the database and both will still have their configuration options. But testing the workflow and weighing out some of these new features will help you decide which one you want to use.